Hi, I'm Lucy Wehlage, and I work in Indiana's Advanced Industries. I knew studying biology in college. I loved science. I loved the critical thinking and the problem solving and the mindset of people who work in STEM, but working in a lab didn't excite me. And the Orr Fellowship was this perfect program for, again, someone who knows they want to make an impact, but doesn't know exactly where that's going to be. But I would say that the science classes were always my favorite growing up, but I would say, I'm someone who also is really cares a lot about relationships. And so, in the clubs I was in college and in high school, I was like a show choir kid and a theater kid and loved that like relationship building and aspects of that. But I would say my favorite classes were probably the science classes. I'm the Strategic Partnerships and Experiences Lead here at the Heritage Group. And for me, that really means I drive corporate philanthropy and social impact. So here at Heritage, philanthropy means a lot of different things. Ultimately, when we think about our values, one of our values is doing the right thing always. And I'm really lucky in my role, I really get to live that out. So we have 6 kind of areas or pillars of giving that we call them. So that includes food security, housing, workforce development, STEM education, families, and sustainability. And that really drives a lot of the organizations that we choose to build these purposeful partnerships with. In addition to that, my role is thinking about how do we use our time and our talent in addition to our treasure to uplift the communities where our employees live and work. We're investing in our employees, we're investing in the future generations, and we're investing in the communities that surround us. And so in my role, I really get to drive those partnerships and the events that we do and how we engage our employees and the meaningful and philanthropic work that we're doing in the community. I work at the Heritage Group at the corporate level, and so what that means is my entire job is figuring out how we support all of the businesses under our umbrella, is really working of how can we elevate the fantastic work that they're doing, and being able to support all the operations and all these things that they're all working on. How do we really elevate that experience? And so for me, in the philanthropic lens, that really means, each individual business under the Heritage Group umbrella does their own philanthropy. They do their own giving. There's a million different things that all of our companies are doing in the community. My role is to say, how do we talk about that? How do we tell our employees across the business the fantastic work that we're doing in the community? And then how do we, try and be strategic about the partnerships that we're building and making sure that we're not just writing a check. Again, we're thinking about how we use our time and our talent to make these partnerships more than just a financial support. Both in life and I'm finding in work, I would describe myself as like a very purpose-driven individual. I feel really fulfilled when I know that I'm making a positive impact and can see the tangible result of the effort that I'm putting in a positive lens. And so that was something, through all my relationships growing up and building and watching my parents and seeing how they interact with people, and they care so much again about the community that was around us and uplifting everyone in the community. So that was something that I felt like was ingrained growing up, was this higher purpose of helping others. And so I didn't really even know that there were careers, in philanthropy. I grew up in family of healthcare. And so for me, coming to Heritage, I was really lucky enough to be put in charge of a couple projects that were in the giving space. So a couple early in career partnerships of organizations in Indianapolis, like Center for Leadership Development, Girls Inc., organizations with children where we're teaching them, again, about what they can be when they grow up. And so I had a little experience early in my career here with that kind of external nonprofit partnership and really fell in love with it. And was really lucky enough to get the opportunity to come into this full time and really think about how do we make these big impacts, but how do we make it meaningful and how do we make it purposeful? I never thought that there'd be a career where I combine impact-driven work, purpose-driven work, relationship-building work, and that makes me happy to go to work every day. I feel really lucky. Thinking about one thing that excites me about my job is honestly so hard because I love my job. I honestly adore almost everything I do. But if I had to pick one, it would be Kids Science Camp, which is a 3-day camp for our employees' children, where we teach them all about the industries where mom and dad work. So we do hands-on science experiments every day that have to do with asphalt, that have to do with chemicals, that have to do with environmental sustainability. And not only is it a value to our employees for providing this education for their children, and I think that this helps employees have a greater sense of belonging to the company, that we're making this investment, both time and talent, into their children. But then we're also teaching the kids what they can be when they grow up, that science looks a lot of different ways. And being able to see that light bulb click in their head when we're teaching them these things, like, oh, mom or dad told me about that one time, I now get it, is something that is like, I can't explain how much it fills my heart. But to be able to really make an impact on the future generations and teach them how important the work that it is that we're doing, environmentally, sustainability, for the infrastructure that we drive on every day, all these things have really large impacts. And so to be able to teach the next generation about that is really special. For me, when I think about STEM education, Indiana, I feel like we're at a really cool spot where hard tech is booming. I think we're at a hub for STEM generally, but especially for our industries. Like we are growing, we are learning, we are doing all these things. We need good, hardworking people, both for Indiana and for our businesses. And so we prioritize STEM education, not only because of trying to teach future generations, but also thinking about talent pipeline and thinking about maybe one day these kids could be our employees and help with Indiana's economy and the infrastructure that allows us to be successful here in the state. STEM has just always been part of my family's DNA. Growing up at the dinner table, my parents talking about their days at the hospital, and again, kind of that problem-solving mindset. But then my parents did send me to a couple science camps as a kid, and just felt that like light bulb, the aha moment of, whoa, science is so many things. It's everywhere. I would say science is like creative, yet it's grounded. It's careful, yet it can be really powerful. And for me, that was just something that was part of growing up. And I always knew that this was something that's, again, there's a lot of different avenues of what STEM is, but I feel really lucky to work at a company that works in STEM. Another lesson that I think is really crucial, especially early in your career, is finding a peer mentor. So for me, being part of the OR Fellowship program, I was surrounded by peers, but I think making a really intentional effort to find individuals who may be similar in age or similar in spot in your career, and being able to use them as a sounding board for maybe different challenges that you're facing or from questions you have, or wanting advice and maybe they've navigated something similar and this is what they learned. Or I think just being able to have a peer to bounce a lot of these things off of is really important, and I've found really valuable throughout my career thus far.